It's all right, isn't it?
It's very good.
Thank you. You like it. So, my name's Max Monday. I'm a trade union activist, a community broadcaster and a socialist in the Labour Party. I hope you are too. I've been coordinating the local campaign, Sheffield for Corbyn, to get Jeremy Corbyn elected as leader of the Labour Party. Jeremy will be speaking in just a moment, but I want to say this. Literally every day, Sheffield for Corbyn campaigners are getting contacted by people across the region who want to get this man elected. They want a different type of politics, and they want to be active in making it themselves. Our campaign is grassroots, and it's not going away after this election result. Absolutely not. We're still running phone banks. We're still running phone banks to get the vote out, as well as meeting to plan how locally we ensure that our Labour Party branches are a campaigning socialist force in the community, and nationally will beat and will not mimic the Tories. So today, this is a rally both for Jeremy Corbyn to lead the Labour Party and a rally for you and me. Because Jeremy has said throughout his campaign, we are not electing a personality, we're electing ourselves. This is how politics should work. How many times have you attended an MP's rally like this? Like none. Why? Because so often they're not articulating what we need them to say in a straightforward, honest way. Jeremy Corbyn is different, and Jeremy Corbyn is our candidate, and he needs our vote. So now let's try and win this election. And so I want to ask a few questions, and I want you to answer me. Do you want a national education service and the scrapping of tuition fees? Yeah! Do you want controls on rent and new green council houses? Yeah! Do you want an end to nuclear weapons? Yeah! Do you want nationalised energy and railways? Yeah! A proper fight to stop tax avoidance? Yeah! High quality union organised jobs, not 0 hours and low pay? Yeah! Do you want policies that come from members and not Mandelsons? Yes! Do you want to be part of this movement? And do you want these ideas to win? Yes! Do you want Jeremy Corbyn to be leader of the Labour Party? Yes! Then please welcome the MP for Islington North and Sheffield's choice, Jeremy Corbyn.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming here this afternoon. I'm really sorry the Crucible isn't big enough to take everybody. We'll have to expand it and put an atrium over this. Will that do? That'll be a help. Thanks ever so much for coming along. It's absolutely brilliant. This is the, I think I'm right in saying, 83rd event we've done as part of this campaign. And it's all over Britain, England, Wales, Scotland, everywhere. We're getting huge numbers of people coming. And I think the reason is because of, well, there's a number of reasons. The first one is, ours is a campaign about ideas, it's about optimism, it's about hope, it's about inclusion. And it's about recognising that everybody in our society has some good ideas. Everybody in our society has a contribution to make. And I think we have a political process that has become completely removed from the lifestyle and discussion of most ordinary people. And I understand, you might tell me if I'm wrong on this, that some of the popular papers and some people on the media are saying very unpleasant things about us and other people. Frankly, I don't care. We're not replying, we're not responding. We're not doing that kind of politics, but I think there's nothing more off-putting to the majority of the population than seeing Parliament as a theatrical opportunity where people hurl abuse at each other and actually completely forget the reality of what life is like for the vast majority of people in this country. And so when Labour unfortunately lost the election in May, like I'm sure all of you, I was both very depressed and very angry and very sad about that. There was good stuff in the manifesto, no question about that, but the fundamental problem was the banking crisis of 2008 was created by banks, by greed, by excessive salaries for the top bankers and the bonus culture, and their lack of regulation and control. We did the right thing in taking the banks into public ownership. We did the wrong thing in putting the shares in a government holding company that a later chance the Exchequer could sell off. George Osborne has no right to sell off the RBS shares at a loss, which is what he's doing at the moment, any more than they have a right to put forward a budget which includes £30 billion worth of sales of public assets in this year alone, tax relief for the very richest through inheritance tax, and then make massive cuts in the welfare budget to the most vulnerable and poorest people within our society. I think as a party, as a Labour Party and a Labour movement, we've got to do a couple of things. One is recognise where we come from, what we're about, and why we exist. People founded our movement, founded our unions, struggled to bring about democracy in our society, to get the right to vote, to get women the right to vote, to build up the principles behind the National Health Service and the universal welfare state. They struggled to achieve all of that. If we accept the politics of austerity, which essentially is saying that the unregulated banks and the subprime mortgage crisis have got to be paid for by the poorest and most vulnerable in our society, by 0 hours contracts, by low wages, by unemployment, then I think we're doing something fundamentally wrong. We have to challenge the politics of it, and it is a political trick which is about rolling back the state and taking opportunities away from the majority of the population. 5 years of Tory Lib Dem government has led to some of the greatest levels of inequality of any country in Europe. Another 5 years, it's going to be grotesque levels of inequality. That is what the Tories and the Lib Dems, well, Lib Dems don't need to worry about them too much, but it's what the Tories are absolutely about. But this is a process and an election for, yes, the leader and deputy leader of the Labour Party, but it's also something wider than that. When this contest begun, like everyone else, as I said, I was depressed by the election result. I wanted there to be a proper debate about where we're going and what we're doing as a party. That wasn't to be. We had this contest, and so with great difficulty we managed to get on the ballot paper. You all know it was very difficult. And I thank those MPs that nominated, and I thank those MPs that supported, and I thank all those people that got onto social media to assist us in getting those nominations. So we got there. And then we started on this campaign. It's a campaign in which we're putting out a lot of ideas. We're putting out ideas on economy, on welfare, on NHS, on mental health, on arts and culture, on transport, on devolution of powers, on development in the north of England, what happens to devolved assemblies like in Scotland and Wales, whole lots and lots of different ideas. Because I don't want there to be policy making in the Labour Party which is top down with a see-all, know-all leader that decides what's going to happen and passes it down the line. The principles of the Labour movement are about local and participative democracy, and that's the message we're trying to put forward. So let's deal with a couple of issues. Firstly, how you deal with austerity. Essentially, what the government is saying is we have to cut our way to prosperity. So they made massive cuts in 2010. That's made the situation considerably worse, and they're now proposing a whole lot more cuts in the autumn statement on what's going on. Our problem as a Labour Party is that in the last election we were also going along with the politics of austerity and saying that we too would be making cuts in order to achieve an arbitrary date by which we achieve a budget surplus. Now don't get me wrong, I don't think running a deficit permanently is a particularly good idea, but what I do think is you regain your strength, you get a good position when you invest in the economy, when you grow the economy. You can't cut your way to prosperity, you have to grow your way to prosperity. Yes. So what we're suggesting is a investment through a national investment bank to improve infrastructure all over the country, a national investment bank that will invest in housing, a national investment bank that will invest in new industries, in green technology and alternative energy sources. There's a whole lot of areas in which people in this country are absolutely good and brilliant, which have not had sufficient investment in them. A national investment bank would be part of that process. And then you look at the social and environmental issues that we face. First up is housing. The housing crisis is in every part of the country, albeit in slightly different forms. But we have insufficient investment in new council housing everywhere in Britain. We have a government that's obsessed with selling off housing association property, which actually is not theirs to sell in the first place, and continuing with tax relief in investment into the private rented sector, which is then subsidised by the DWP budget through housing benefits. So we have a situation where we're spending public money on a housing shortage in order to enrich a small number of people that are able to make money out of the private rented sector on unregulated rents. It doesn't actually make a great deal of sense. Surely we should instead be investing that money in council housing and in developing a housing that is there for all, rather than the crisis that we have at the present time. A National Investment Bank would be available to do that. You then look at the other areas of public service, and whilst I welcome any new hospital that was built, any new school that was built, and it is still being built, but I have to say this: funding those things through private finance initiative is not a very sensible way of doing it. We lose control, we pay through the nose, and we don't get very much at the end of it. And so, again, the suggestion is that you fund things through a properly funded public investment process. And then you move on to the other big issues that face our society: education, health and welfare. Let's deal with education first. This government is preventing any local authority building any new school unless it's a free school, is encouraging academies which are quasi-independent of local government and are supposedly run by central government, and promoting free schools where there isn't even a requirement of having qualified teachers in those places. I think cities like Sheffield had a great record as local education authorities, great record in innovative ideas in education by promoting a family of schools and family of colleges and a family of educational opportunity and achievement, including adult education. So we're proposing that we strengthen rather than weaken the local education authority and bring the free schools and academies back into the local authority family of schools. And also that instead of treating education as a marketable commodity, which is too often what happens, and penalising students with massive debts at the end of their course, look at what other countries do in Europe. It's not particularly extreme to say that we all benefit from a well-educated, well-qualified community. If we travel on a train and it's safe and it's well designed and well run, that's because somebody somewhere studied, worked hard, became an engineer in order to maintain that train or design that train. Same with buildings, same with everything else in our lives. We all benefit from the education of everybody else. And so one of the suggestions, and there are suggestions we put forward, is a very small, modest rise in corporation tax rather than a cut in corporation tax in order to cover the cost of student fees, so students do not leave with these massive debts at the end of their university education. I opposed the introduction of fees in the first place, and I opposed the rise to 3,000, now 9,000. What's the government's alternative on this? To raise student fees to unlimited levels. So Oxbridge no doubt will get away with charging £25,000, £30,000, and they say it's going to be covered by scholarships. Well, we're told in the USA that anyone can get to an Ivy League university if they get a scholarship. Well, that may well be true, and Bill Clinton did get a scholarship and did get to an Ivy League university, and he went on to become President of the United States. Well done, Bill Clinton, bully for him. The problem is, what you don't hear about is the tens or hundreds of thousands of other poor students all across the USA who didn't get a scholarship, didn't get to go to an Ivy League university, didn't get to go on in life. I don't want a system based on charity and scholarships. I want a system based on universal values that every student that can benefit from it should have the opportunity to go to college or university, pursue a qualification, be it a vocational qualification or an academic qualification. We all benefit from it. And also, I'm just depressed and sad at the way in which adult education is being destroyed in our society at the present time. It provides that opportunity for people to go back to college in the future and learn something if that's what they want to do. And I think that's the kind of good society that we want to be able to live in. We are, at the moment, getting a sort of almost tsunami of abuse on the media and others about people who legitimately claim benefits to which they're entitled through the DWP, the welfare system. In reality, what's happening is there's been massive cuts. In reality, the benefits available for people with disabilities have been cut. The availability for work test is utterly brutal, and the government was finally forced a couple of days ago into publishing the statistics on the number of people that have died as a result, in part, of their benefits being capped or removed, or indeed they've been put under sanctions and received no benefits at all. There is something very brutal about our society when we so treat people who are in a very difficult and vulnerable place that they end up taking their own lives. We are strong enough to defend the principle of an NHS free at the point of use as a human right. Cannot we be strong enough, bold enough and determined enough to say we want to live in a society where the social security system does function, so you don't end up with people in a difficult and bad place, sleeping rough, dying on the streets and begging? Cannot we instead measure our success by the removal of destitution and poverty within our society, and say we actually would be proud to live in a society that genuinely and generally cares for everybody? I think these things are possible and achievable. And so there's a great deal in this process that I think is very important and very exciting. And the exciting part of it is the numbers of people that have come forward and got involved in debate, because they've not been involved before, not because they're not interested in politics, ideas, human rights and justice, but because they've not felt there's an opportunity, as a place for them to be able to do that. And that's what's exciting about it. But we live in a world where there are big problems. There's problems of environmental degradation, there's problems of large numbers of people seeking refuge from environmental degradation and from wars. Now, I've been in this city many times to speak at peace meetings, anti-war meetings and many other things. We made a terrible, terrible decision about going into a war in Iraq in 2003 on the basis of non-information, and we are still paying the price of that war. Politically, yes, within the Labour Party, but we're also paying the price with the wars that have followed, because one war often leads to another, to another, to another. There are now more people across the whole globe displaced as a result of war and environmental disasters than at any time in recorded human history. We cannot solve all those problems, obviously not. Those problems can be addressed and must be addressed by the United Nations and must be addressed by the wealthier nations of the world making a contribution. We're not going to solve it by blaming people who are trying to cross the Mediterranean to survive, travelling around Europe looking for somewhere safe to live. There has to be a human and a humanitarian approach to it. They are fellow human beings, just like you and me, who have tried to achieve a place of safety in a very difficult world. These things have to be addressed. Our party was founded by people with enormous vision. It was founded by people who wanted to bring about social justice within our society, wanted to see the fruits of labours properly rewarded, and wanted to see proper health services, proper education and everything else. To achieve those things, we have to challenge the levels of inequality that exist. We have to challenge the levels of tax evasion that exist by global corporations. We have to challenge an awful lot of things in our society. But to do that, we need to be clear what we're trying to do as a party. Clear that we actually want to achieve a society where there is greater equality, where there is greater opportunity, where people are not homeless, where young people are not consigned to 0 hours contracts on jobs that don't last very long. Instead, we have proper regulation of employment, and we do not destroy the rights of trade unions, which is being done with the Trade Union Reform Bill, because I think what follows behind that is an attack on the Human Rights Act and all the human rights that we hold very, very dear. And so this is an election for the Labour Party, but I hope whatever the result, and I have no idea what the result's going to be in 2 weeks' time, that it's followed by rapidly a process of bringing much greater democracy to our party, so that the mobilisation that we've already seen over the last few months of thousands of people joining our campaign, supported by individuals, supported by trade unions, and I thank those trade unions for their support, supported by constituency Labour parties, over 150 made nominations, and also supported by donations to help fund our campaign. I have to say the average donation is £23.50 to our campaign, and we receive no corporate funding whatsoever, and also we haven't been offered any corporate funding either by anybody, and we're not going to be accepting it because ours is a campaign about people and about justice. And at the end of that, we recognise what's also happening around the world. There are people coming together in the USA supporting Bernie Sanders in his campaign. There's people coming together across Europe and other places who reject the politics of austerity, who reject the idea that an unequal society is somehow or other a good society, and reject the idea that we have to tell our children and the next generation coming up, sorry, we've had the welfare state, we've had free education, we've had all those opportunities and advantages and good pensions and so on and so on and so on. Some of the pensions aren't so good, but all that. And sorry, it's not available for you because we don't have the political courage in order to share out the wealth in a more fair and equal way. So it is about rediscovering our strength. It is about the excitement of mobilisation of people, but above all, it's about a principle of optimism. We are all humans. We all have unique abilities. We all want to live and survive on this planet, and we want others to live and survive on this planet. So our thinking must change in many, many ways. And what's really great about this is it's opened up that space and that opportunity. We've put out lots of ideas there. You may agree with some, you may disagree with others, you may want to develop others, but we all have a view. We all have knowledge. We all have abilities. We all have learning. Share it out. Don't let it be exclusive. Yeah. Share it out and make it strong. And so my final message to you is, first of all, obviously, thank you very much for coming here. I'm sorry the Crucible Theatre isn't big enough. We do have, by the way, ideas for improving and increased arts funding and creative industries all across the UK. And indeed, we're launching a quite big document on that on Tuesday. So look out for that one. And again, give your ideas and give your opinions on that. But this is a summer which should have been, according to the media, a summer of deep depression for everybody who is remotely on the left of any sort in British politics, remotely in favour of social justice, because they're supposed to bow down and accept the ordered society that the Conservatives want for us. One of privilege, one of wealth, one of inequality, and one of taking us back 1930s, maybe 1830s, I'm not quite sure which century they had in mind. But instead, we've been able to do something very, very different. So we're not going to go away at the end of this. We're going to stay together. Yeah! We're going to stay together doing this campaign. We're going to stay together developing those ideas. Stay together with that hope and that inspiration and that aspiration of a coherent, cohesive, collective society. Staying at home, throwing things at the television, throwing newspapers in the bin, swearing at the cat because it gets in the way of the television when you're watching the news, won't change anything. Doing things together, campaigning together, trying to defend our local government against all the cuts that are taking place, defending our health service, defending our services, but above all, trying to share the wealth of our society is something we can do very strong together. Thank you very much for inviting me here today.
Corbyn, MP! We've still got some tickets to the Crucible if you want to see the Q&A. We've got still some tickets, please go straight down there if you want some. But we've still got lots of speakers, so don't go away. There's lots to be done, there's lots of ideas to share. If you want to carry on with the campaigning in Sheffield,